and so on. I would say, the other, Democratic Party and the Civic Party, they should be, I think, speaking out more on occasions like that. That, they shouldn't be afraid of being controversial, and it is important to speak out, I think. But going back to that actual incident, as regards, what actually happened of getting arrested, I, on the other hand, I would say that with a protest like that, it's very, very important to be, in control of, in terms of an activist and a protester. You've got to be very very careful about putting your hands up, because the moment you put your hands up, to protect yourself in self-defense, there's a possibility that it might, by accident, end up in a policeman's face, and then you're in trouble, you see.
But I think the Andrew To episode, the incident wouldn't happen to you, Matt, because you're relatively taller. So the camera can catch you very easily, that your hands would be up in the air, that no one would be hurt. So I think that might be to your advantage.
You might be right about that. But comparing actually to footballers, and I don't know how much of a football you watch, but if you notice, whenever the professional footballers have a disagreement with a referee, if you notice what they do, they run straight up to the referee, but they put their hands behind their back. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh.
And they've been told to do that, actually, by their manager, so that there's absolutely no possibility of them, for whatever reason, putting their hand on the body of a referee. Because the moment you even touch with one small little finger, you're going to get sent off, and you're going to get in big trouble. And in some ways, I would say, protesters could learn from that, actually. You've got to think, because obviously, as a protester, if you've got your hands behind your back, you go straight up to the police. If the police touch you, and you can be sure that someone in the media in Hong Kong will see it, that will make the police look very bad, and they're going to get in a lot of trouble, actually. And it will totally, in terms of a story, it will change the angle of a story, actually. And I think activists in Hong Kong have got to be careful, but have also, I think, could think of ways of making the government look bad and, putting them under pressure. But certainly, in terms of the coverage of that protest I read as a whole, forgetting that particular incident about the arrest, it seems that the police overreacted, I think, and were obstructing protesters, I think, from exercising their constitutional right, actually, and sort of blocking them in, I think.
With political issue.
In the meantime, you do have conspiracy theories flying around. I mean, there have been conspiracy theories going on saying that because, there's quite a feeling that Andrew To might succeed Raymond Wong as the chair of the LSD, and then that might be a gift to celebrate from the police. I mean, to arrest you and handcuff you. So I don't know, but I mean, if the police really overreacted, you're sort of creating some sort of a conspiracy in people's mind, because the timing is sensitive, and in the meantime, it's quite unusual to I don't know, with right from the beginning, as people who know Andrew To as you described, no one would give a thought that he would be doing such a radical thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know him pretty well, and he's not the kind of guy who goes around attacking people, and quite the contrary. I've watched that clip pretty closely, and I think he definitely shouldn't have been arrested for that. And from what I saw, he was just defending himself, I think. And it looked like he not only that the police were unnecessarily brutal, actually, the way they grabbed him and hauled him basically into the police van, and it looks like he's got some marks on his arms.
Yes.
So it might, it would even be possible for him to bring a case against the police and say, listen, you can't just grab a citizen who's exercising their constitutional right, forcefully grab him and throw him in the back of a police van and arrest him. So, we have to see how it plays out in court, I think.
But in the meantime, I think it's quite strange that the media is pretty silent about this. And if I may say, I think the LSD itself remains also a bit silent on the issue, don't you think?
Obviously, on that day, in terms of the coverage, the big story was the National Day celebrations. And so, obviously that was the overriding story which filled the whole newspaper. And that's obviously why it's kind of, seen as a smaller activist kind of story. But we have to see how it plays out in court, because obviously he's quite an important figure in LSD, and obviously people in the media obviously know that he's very likely to be the future chairman of LSD, and whenever the leader of a group or a potential leader is going to be taken to court, it can affect things, actually, can't it? It can affect the political situation a bit, actually, because obviously LSD it wields a fair amount of power, actually. It's got members joining every week, and it can affect the political situation a bit, especially when a chairman or a vice chairman is taken to court, even if it's for a relatively minor thing.
And if it ends up that Andrew Cho is going to be being jailed, and I think that would sort of add the legendary color to his political profile. It's sort of like a political gift for him. I mean,
I mean, to be honest, he hasn't been in jail before, and speaking from someone who has, actually, in some ways, it could be an interesting experience for him to spend a couple of weeks in jail and see what it's like a bit.
Because in some cultures, in some political culture, being in jail could be a political asset.
Is it exactly
something
right?
to be proud of.
Yeah, you're right. And I would say to him and other people in the democracy movement, you'd be surprised, actually, that in a funny kind of way, if you're thrown in prison for, whilst you're involved in a demonstration fighting for democracy, it makes the government look bad, and it'll make you look good, actually.
Yes.
And especially in the political situation that we're in Hong Kong. And I'm always, I'm sad that there haven't been more activists and more political leaders willing to go to prison. I'd love it to see Albert Ho or the head of the Civic Party be willing to go to prison.
And Albert Ho needs to lose some weight, I mean.
Yeah,
so
perhaps he does, actually, doesn't he?
To go to the prison, that's you as a perfect example.
Yeah, perhaps he does,
And in the meantime, I think when I once met a Taiwanese politician, and he was in jail near the time as Chen Shui-bian. I mean, when I met him, immediately he would say that, I am so, and I was in jail for 25 years. How would anyone introduce yourself saying, I was in jail for so many years, as a way to start a conversation? So, but to them, it shows the political culture that it is something to be proud of, or as a political credentials. So next time when you introduce yourself, Matt, I'm Matt Pearce. I was in the jail
perhaps I should, actually,
for a few weeks or so.
Perhaps I should, actually. Yeah.
It's a good way to greet your voters. Perhaps.
Yeah, I should, actually. Yeah. And because obviously it can be a bit of a taboo being in prison in Hong Kong for some reason. And I'm all for I'm going to get out and tell people about my experience a bit, and hopefully change that mentality a bit, and make people realise, okay, yes, I've been in prison, but so was Nelson Mandela, and sometimes the good guys go to prison, and I would say to activists out there, sometimes you've got to make sacrifices, and even if often at the time, people, a lot of people might say, it's not good to be getting arrested and going to court. But often with something like that, you see, it's later people look back and reflect, and they do in a funny kind of way. They respect you, actually. They realise, you're not doing it for money, you're not doing it for whatever. Ultimately, this guy went to prison for fighting for democracy, and they do respect that, because there's a lot of people in Hong Kong politics who do a lot of talking, but I think a lot of people want to see a bit more action, a bit more sacrifice, I think. hopefully, there will be more activists who sort of come forward and realise, as long as you do civil disobedience in a very controlled way, a very peaceful way, it's possible to make the government look bad.
Civil obedience. I mean.